'Tis the season, 'tis the day, 'tis the weekend. 'Tis time for Garden America. We are back in the saddle. Happy weekend to you. We trust you had a good week. I'm Brian Main, Tiger Palafox, the Hall of Famer, John Bagnasco. We are ready to go. Lots lined up today. Questions, comments, as always. Those on Biz Talk Radio, John, you were mentioning before the show, if you're listening to us on Biz Talk Radio, they can go to our website, and what happens?
You can see what we're doing right now.
You can see us. If you have a little voyeurism in you, perfect platform.
Sometimes we bring in plants for show and tell, but not today, right?
Not today.
Calendar.
We have to remember to do that, but you do have a calendar, Tiger.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this calendar later from Jessica Damianos.
Damianos.
Yes. Is that how you... Damianos.
I think so.
Is it Damianos or Damiano? Her
Or
name's Jessica
Damianos' calendar.
Right.
Sorry, Damianos.
So, see, here's another reason why, if you're listening on Biz Talk Radio, to go to our website or go to our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, Garden America Radio Show, you could feast your eyes on that calendar.
Yep.
Now, what you're doing is you're feasting it with your ears.
Feasting it with your ears. And we're going to be
It's an ear
feasting
feast.
next week, right?
We are.
Thanksgiving?
That's right. Thanksgiving. Hey, happy Thanksgiving, because the next time we see you, it'll be Thanksgiving post.
Post
Do
Thanksgiving.
you want to know what Carla in Huntington Beach is thankful for?
Absolutely.
For us?
Absolutely.
She's thankful for everyone who's involved with the Garden America radio show and participates in this wonderful program.
Oh, that's
Carla,
sweet.
that's very nice. Thank you so much. Well,
We're
we
thankful
don't
for you.
We don't give our behind-the-scenes staff much credit. They work tirelessly during the week, compiling statistics and details. we can thank our IT computer guy, Daniel.
Yeah.
He does a good job.
I was going to say, if you go to Facebook, you can see all our behind-the-scenes guys on camera.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Carla. We do appreciate that. So happy Thanksgiving week to one and all.
Yeah, John, you had a neat article that we hit up every time this time of year for the Thanksgiving versus the Christmas cactus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and how people get confused, or they call them Christmas cactuses when they are actually the Thanksgiving cactus.
A few years ago, I would have said, you mean Christmas cacti instead of cactuses.
Cacti is more than one cactus.
Well, it's the Latin plural of cactus.
I had a cactus one time. I taught him to talk.
Did you? All right. But anyway, now the title of one of my books has cactuses in it. I had fought with the publisher and finally
Lost.
I told my co-author, Bob, just let them do what they want.
So is more than one mouse meese?
No.
Just
that's
mouse, isn't it?
Never been the case.
How about moose? More than one moose is what?
What about deer?
Deer.
Boy, here we go.
I think when you get into that whole antler genre, it's just deer or moose.
Going down another rabbit hole, as they say.
Yeah.
So, Tiger, you mentioned before the show, Christmas trees have arrived at Mission Hills Nursery.
Right?
And you said they look good.
Yeah, they look good. We got our first shipment in. We're happy. Already started selling them. Yesterday, we got them in. We've already sold 5 trees.
Okay, is it, if I bought a tree now,
Yes.
November, what is it, the 19th or 20th here?
20th,
right?
right.
Yeah, so if you were going on vacation the middle of December and you didn't need the tree to look good for Christmas,
Not a good idea.
Buy it today.
Buy it today.
But the upkeep of a Christmas tree now, I'm going to stay home, I'm going to be here.
Okay.
You're talking a month and a few days now until Christmas.
Depends on the variety of tree, right, Tiger?
Yeah, a Douglas fir will not last at all. Like there's just nothing you can do to make it last that long.
Do you sell balsam firs?
No, we don't.
Those you've got to buy fresh 2 days, before
Christmas Eve. I love people Christmas Eve shopping for trees.
But a Fraser fir or noble fir, now, if you were to get it home, fresh cut it, get it in water, get it inside, keep the room dark, put LED lights on it, not the what would be the other ones called? I don't even know. The old
there
school
used to
Christmas
be
lights.
Yeah, the C6s and C7s.
Right, but those heat up. You
Right.
need to keep it cool. So LED lights on it, keep the blinds closed, keep the room cool. You'll get it to last through Christmas.
If I didn't know what you were talking about, I would think
refrigerator.
you're getting something set up that's very nefarious. Keep the blinds closed, keep the heat up at a certain
Put some plastic on the
circle
walls.
lights, cellophane on the windows. I don't know.
Well, the
John.
worst thing for trees staying fresh is the dry atmosphere.
Right.
And if you've got windows closed and the heat on indoors, you've got
just
very
dry
low
out.
humidity.
So if I came to your nursery and you saw me taking one of the little, what do you call them, little pine, not,
If he saw you taking anything,
Anything?
he would call security.
Yes.
what am I trying to think of here? The little pine,
Pine needle? The
Okay, if
pine
I took a little
needles?
pine needle and bent it,
Okay.
what would I be doing?
So you're testing the pine needle, whether it's dry, brittle, or
The
whether it's...
resiliency, right?
Exactly, and that's not a bad thing to do.
No, it's not a bad thing to do. And one bad thing to do, though, is assume because a lot of pine needles are falling out of a tree that it's not fresh. Because you got to remember that these trees came in on a semi packed up to the roof. And this one tree could be the freshest tree. And it could have been at the bottom of the pile, and all the needles fell into it. And so when you open it up, all these needles, but it's not necessarily its needles.
No, if needles are falling off a tree, don't worry unless it's from the ends of the branches.
Yes.
If
Yeah,
the
true.
tips, if the needles are falling off the tips,
Then
don't buy
it's-
that tree.
yeah.
So that's your tip?
That's my tip.
Okay. Very good. We see a lot of people now, more and more people logging on, watching us on Facebook Live. We appreciate that. And again, as John mentioned early in the show, those on Biz Talk Radio, go to our website, gardenamerica.com, for many reasons. All kinds of links there take you to various places, I should say, that we deal with. We deal with ourselves. We deal with others. We have roses on there, the Rose of the Week. We have links to our shows. So check it out, gardenamerica.com.
Hey, Linda in Reading is thankful for my help in the rose auction because she was successful in getting 3 out of 4.
Oh, was she
plants.
one that sent you an email with what she wanted?
Yes,
Because she couldn't log on?
couldn't figure it out.
Nice.
Right. That's your new friend.
Yeah.
And the reason I know is because I still haven't quite figured this out, but there's a certain way if I download a picture on my computer, that it always comes up when the computer goes into screensaver. Anything that's in that file, apparently somewhere, because I've got maybe 10 or 15 pictures that sequence through, right?
Right.
And one of them is a huge full monitor picture of Linda and Tiger.
Yeah. And for some reason, it just stays there for John. It
No, it
never,
doesn't.
never rotates.
No, it just
I have the
keeps
same thing I
rotating.
told you on our living room TV, our big flat screen. When, if you don't continue to change channels like a computer, then it'll go into
goes
like
into
a mode, a picture
sleep
sleep mode. But I see all these pictures of us in Europe, the place we visited, that
Right.
rose. I call it a rose factory. That's not it. In France, what was that place called?
Rose.
I call it a rose.
Factory.
They had, remember the back, they had a big pile of roses, and those are the ones that didn't make it.
Yeah, they call them nurseries.
But what was the name of the place?
That was Mayon.
Mayon, that's what I call
Right.
it a rose factory. I
House
think a lot of
House
people
Mayon.
identify. But my point being is in every single picture that John is in, he's got this big smile on his face because you know that he wouldn't want to be anyplace else but there at the
Yeah.
time. He's just giddy.
I want to be with John the first time he gets to go to
Zangerhausen.
Zangerhausen. Because
I tried to arrange a trip to Zangerhausen, and Matthew, who works our trip, says, it's like going to Cooperstown. There's nothing around
nothing
it.
around it. Yeah.
Speaking of people who are posting things on Facebook, a bear ripped apart my bag of Milorganite the other night.
A bear?
A bear.
Oh my goodness.
Kathy, we'd like to hear more about that.
It's Kathy and Neelan.
In Neelan, yeah.
Jeez.
Wow.
A bear ripped up. Well, there you go. There's another reason for Milorganite.
It attracts bears?
Even bears like Milorganite.
She's one of our listeners who could let us know what that bear does in the woods.
Wow.
Send us pictures.
John, I think it's time. We got a break coming up here, and then we're going to bring on Melinda Myers this morning.
Melinda's our guest
We're
this
going to
morning.
continue
Looking
with
forward to having
all the
her on
fall
the show.
things you need to be doing. But, John, you've got the quote of the week.
Yeah, and the quote of the week is, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them.
Nice.
And that was John F. Kennedy in his 1963 Thanksgiving proclamation. And you know what happened a couple of weeks ago?
I was going to say Thanksgiving, November 22nd, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Went dark.
I'm reflecting, John. I'm reflecting.
Well, that proclamation, I think, came out on November 5th or 6th, because they always issue it prior to Thanksgiving.
Right.
But he was assassinated before Thanksgiving that year in 63.
Absolutely. You know where you were. I know where I was. Tiger has no idea. Hey, that said, we're going to take our first
Tiger
break.
knows where he wasn't.
Where he wasn't. We're going to take our first break, come back with Melinda Myers. Thank you for joining us on this, we'll call it Thanksgiving week here, 2021 with Garden America. John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox, I'm Brian Main. Stay with us. Back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. Back with us on Garden America this Thanksgiving week. Happy weekend to you. Brian Main along with John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. Thank you for sitting through the break. Those on Biz Talk Radio, those on Facebook Live. With that, I'm just going to toss it to Tiger and see what he comes up with. Hey, Tiger.
Yeah, we have our favorite guest on the show with us this morning, Melinda Myers. And Melinda, you're joining us not from your home today, correct?
You bet. I'm at Ebert's Greenhouse Village, which is this wonderful place with plants during the growing season, lots of cool annuals, perennials, trees, and shrubs. But now it's all about Christmas. Poinsettias and Christmas cactus, Christmas trees, garland. So I'm going to talk about keeping them looking their best when we're done here. And I walked into their big, huge greenhouse, and it smelled like Christmas. So
wow.
The holidays are here, whether we're ready or not.
So they have Christmas trees as well there right now, huh?
You bet. They're grown locally, which is really cool. The Christmas tree farm is not far away, so they get cut fresh and delivered, and all different sizes. So.
Which kind of tree do they use as a Christmas tree there?
Fraser and balsam firs. How about you guys? I know you may have a noble firs. Maybe?
Yeah, noble fir, Douglas fir, Fraser fir. No balsams here.
Now, when I was in Michigan, the number one fir was Scotch Pine.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the pines are still, you can find them in some places, but I think Fraser and balsam's kind of, it's a native tree here in parts of Wisconsin, and then Fraser got so much positive press, and I think the pines, white pine's still popular, but boy, those branches are pretty limp, so if you have heavy ornaments, they fall down. And you're right, Scotch pine is still around, but not as favored as it was in the past. So.
And I want to apologize for that horticulturally incorrect statement I just made that the one of the top firs was the Scotch pine.
Yeah.
I was just going to move right along.
Yeah,
noticed
that's why I apologize, because I knew you're thinking, does he know anything anymore? Hey, before Tiger gets on with his questioning, we had a listener this morning come up with a problem with Milorganite that I think you might be able to comment on.
Okay.
And she says that the other night, a bear ripped apart her bag of Milorganite.
Well, I used to complain about deer and squirrels eating my bird seed, and after I saw pictures of bear and moose and elk, I kind of quit complaining. So a good thing with Milorganite is you never know who it's going to track. So I keep mine locked in a shed, or if you've got an open bag in a metal can. It's also a good idea if you have dogs that kind of like that smell. It won't hurt them, though. If they eat Milorganite they'll leave you a little bigger mess in the yard, and who wants to clean that up? So I guess I never thought about bear, but
Yeah.
I'll add that to my list of things to mention. Thank you, Josh.
That's amazing, right? A bear digging through someone's stuff. Like, I couldn't imagine. Like, you know, I mean, we live here in San Diego County, so I think the biggest fear I have when I walk outside is
Rats?
no, I think like a bird pooping on me or something.
Seagulls.
Yeah, like
Seagulls, yeah.
I couldn't imagine what it'd be like to live in an area where when you walk outside, you got to look left and right to make sure there's no bears around the corner.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mother-in-law and father-in-law live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and they've had bears on their back porch.
Wow.
You don't argue. You let them eat whatever they want.
Exactly, exactly. And speaking of eating whatever they want, Melinda, we're talking some fall plantings tips with you this morning. You know, we're talking a little bit about lawns and fall plant care. You know, we're getting into the time of year for us. I mean, we go through these ups and downs. This week it's been beautifully perfect, 65, 70 degrees. You know, a little overcast, a little sunshine. Now, last weekend it was 85. On Monday and Tuesday of next week, it's supposed to be again in the 80s. So when people are trying to garden during this time of year, what are some things they need to remember?
You know, you really defined it perfectly. Even though we're in the Midwest, we're supposed to get 47 degrees today, which doesn't sound great to you, but it's warm for us.
Mm-hmm.
We've had 21 degrees, and so we're seeing a little frost in the soil. Then we see it thaw out. And so if you've got plants, especially new plantings, check the soil moisture until the ground freezes for those of us in cold areas. And for you, as that weather changes, you really want to make sure that those roots fit, especially new plantings, evergreens, really any of your plants. Make sure that they're well watered. For those with frosty areas, you know, once that ground freezes, you're good. Mulch is excellent. It helps conserve moisture. A layer of mulch also insulates the roots. So, you know, that fluctuation of cold, hot, frozen, thaw, can cause some shifting in the soil, especially if the ground freezes and thaws. And so that can shift. I found coral bells pushed out of the ground come spring because of frost heaving for those of us in cold areas. And so proper watering, mulching, and then if you're going to winter mulch, so for those of us in cold areas, you know, a layer of evergreen boughs on top of your plants after the ground freezes for those of us in cold areas, because we want to keep it cold. We don't want shelter for the animals. You know, we're hoping they've found a home before the ground freezes, before you do your winter mulch over the top of plants, so that we don't have shelter and food handy, and they just can start nibbling on your plants. And then I mentioned animals. They really change their eating habits with the change of season quite often. And so you want to make sure you've got some good protection for your plants, especially those favorite things like fruit trees or any of the things you find they like to nibble on.
Hey, Melinda, you mentioned the evergreen boughs for a soil covering and mulches. Now, this has been something in San Diego that, you know, when you go to a landscape yard, your options are the shredded redwood, which is or otherwise known as gorilla hair. It's a shredded mulch. You can get a medium bark, a walk-on bark, and then there's very inexpensive barks, which are just basically like a shredded up kind of wood material as well. You know, where do you send people for products back there? Like, I mean, you know, where would you even get boughs to be able to mulch your landscape with?
You know, and for us, what's great is usually after the holiday season is over, just cut the branches off. If you had a cut tree, cut the branches off and use them. When my daughter was younger and still living at home, and I would go down the block and grab everybody's Christmas tree at the curb, and she asked me to wait till dark because it was truly embarrassing when she was a teenager. In some places for us, the garden centers sell them too. So one to make your own flags or your holiday container of greens. But I like to just say, you know, by the time the ground freezes, usually it's the holidays are over. We're trying to keep it consistently cold. And for us, if it snows, that's the best winter mulch you can have.
Okay. So you're not recommending people go into the wildlands of their property and start harvesting out of the forest then, huh?
Good point. Don't do that. Don't harvest on your neighbor's property or the natural spaces or the public lands. Because if you're arrested, we are not responsible.
Yeah, right. Hey, we're going to have to take a break here in a minute, Melinda. When we get back, we'll continue chatting with Melinda Myers and talking about some fall planting tips. And we want to give some tips when we get back, Melinda, on how to apply Milorganite, some different application rates, when to do it, how to do it, and things like that. So when we get back, we'll talk with Melinda Myers.
All right, thank you, Tiger. You bet. Along with John Bagnesco, Tiger Palafox, I'm Brian Main. Happy Saturday to you, Thanksgiving week here, 2021. As Tiger mentioned, going to take a quick break on Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live, and then more with Melinda Myers. Stay with us. As always, we thank you so much for tuning in to Garden America. Love having you around, and we hope that you're having a good day and good night as we continue. I'm going to turn things over to Tiger once again as we speak with a good friend of the show, Melinda Myers, and I'm sure some tips that you'll want to know about if you do use Milorganite, Tiger.
Yeah, Melinda. So before we were talking about Milorganite, and people get worried when they're using about how to apply it, when to apply it. Because other fertilizers out there on the market, you do have to exercise some caution when using them. So, when people buy a bag of Milorganite, they open it up, they're going to begin to spread it in their garden. What are some ways that you recommend handling it, spreading it?
Great questions. One thing is check the back of the bag. There's lots of good information, and also on their website, Milorganite.com. So if you're in doubt about how much to apply, one 32-pound bag covers 2,500 square feet of lawn. That's probably the way most people became familiar with Milorganite, is using it on the lawn. Golf courses for years used it that way, and it's been around for over 90 years. And so depending on the size of your lawn, when I had a small city lot, I could just use a hand crank spreader because broadcast spreader, that's about all I needed. With a larger property, a drop spreader, and going half application one direction and then perpendicular the other half. And that way you avoid stripes. It won't hurt your lawn, but the last thing you want to do is your family to give you a hard time. Well, look at those green stripes because you misapplied it. And so that's for lawn. So that makes it easy. For those of us growing cool season grasses, bluegrass, fescue, you want to make your application for sure, if you haven't already, your last fall application before the ground freezes. And what's nice is that fertilizer, whatever the grass, those roots are still taking up nutrients until the ground freezes. Whatever it doesn't use freezes in the soil and is available in spring before we even think about going out. For those of you in milder climates, you've probably done it. You want to stop about 6 weeks before that first hard freeze. And then those of you in really mild areas, you don't have to worry. And what's also nice is if you have dry conditions, if you're in a droughty area, the Milorganite's going to sit in the soil until the water's in the soil and the plants are growing, and then the microorganisms break it down and make it available to the plant so it won't burn. For trees and shrubs, they put on a lot of root growth in spring right before they leaf out, and in fall after they drop their leaves. And so a good time to fertilize. You'll get the best value. You can fertilize almost any other time, but why not make it worth your best effort? A couple ways you can do it. You could spread the Milorganite under the canopy of the tree if it's mulched or in ground cover, and then lightly rake it through that mulch. If it's growing in grass, take a dandelion digger and then make concentric circles around the trunk of the tree, starting a couple feet away from the trunk, and every 2 feet on 18-inch intervals. Take like your dandelion digger, punch down, then pour a couple tablespoons of the fertilizer, and you do that around your tree. The reason we're doing that is so all the fertilizer gets to the tree roots and not to the grass. It it won't hurt the grass, but you really want that fertilizer available for those plants. And so Milorganite, what I like about it, you can use it on everything. It's goof-proof. I only have to have one fertilizer in my shed, and I can take care of all my needs. And then if you're composting, it's a great addition to the compost pile. You fertilize, you provide nutrients for the microorganisms that are breaking down that organic matter, that plant debris, so you speed up the process a bit. And so it's just a great way. And if you're doing, we've talked lasagna and hugelkultur gardening, it's great. I put it in between my layers of, green and brown materials, a little bit of compost, some Milorganite, the next layer. And so it really helps speed up decomposition, and it's got 85% organic matter, so you're also improving the soil.
Yeah, and, another thing that I run into is when we're using it on high-end properties for our landscapes, people have invested into decks or concrete patios. And sometimes when you're using other fertilizers and they sit on surfaces, they can either create rust marks or little spots where if it gets damp and then sits on that surface. With Milorganite, it can sit on there, it just breaks down, sweep it off, turns to mud, for the most part. If it gets wet on a concrete patio, you can just wash it off and it doesn't leave any marks after that. So it's something that people need to remember too, that when they're using fertilizers, sometimes it's not so much where it's being used on the plants, but also what else it gets on the outside of it, right?
Oh, great point. And the other thing is, it's always a good idea, and I know we're not all good at that, including we get in a hurry, but sweeping it off those hard surfaces and back in the lawn or back in the planting bed, especially if you're in an area with heavy rains that can wash that fertilizer off the hard surface into the street and down the storm sewer. It adds to pollution. So for any kind of fertilizer or chemical. So sweeping your clippings from your lawn, sweeping any organic matter off your hard surfaces back in the garden bed or the lawn is a great way to get the maximum value. And as you mentioned, if you get busy and you don't, you're not going to damage those surfaces or mark those surfaces. So great point.
And then what about, when I'm working out in the garden, it's just a joyful experience. And sometimes I just get really happy. And when I'm walking around, I'm just throwing Milorganite here and there. And, because I'm just so happy to be doing what I'm doing. What about when it gets on the foliage of plants? Do you have to worry about that?
No, good point. We did a training video, and a friend of mine helped us, and we were slingshotting it around to show that it wouldn't hurt your plants. I think she had as much joy as you're talking about, Tiger. I just tend to shake it off just because of the visual, but it won't hurt your plant. And that's another good point. It's not going to burn. It's low nitrogen, slow release. And so if you tend to be a little messy, and I am, you're not going to hurt your plant. Or if you're really happy like Tiger, slinging fertilizer around, you're not going to hurt anyone or your plant.
Yeah. So, no, and it's a good product. It has all the right, nutrients that the plants do need for overall good health and growth. Great tips on, how to apply it, when to apply it. Now, the last thing I want to leave on is, watering in your fertilizers. You mentioned placing it at the base of the plants. And when you mentioned trees and shrubs, trying to get it a little bit subsurface so that way maybe it doesn't get absorbed by the lawn or maybe your ground cover plants. Another good thing to do, at least in the warmer months, right, is to kind of water it in.
And the good thing is with Milorganite, you don't have to, but it definitely doesn't hurt, and it gets some moisture there. So you've got the fertilizer, you got some moisture, so you're getting the microorganisms all active. It's good for the plant, and it just kind of speeds the process. But if you're in a hurry or you're just loosely flinging it all over, you don't have to follow up with the garden hose. But, moisture is always... That's probably, you probably see this too, you guys probably see this too, that proper watering is really so challenging. I think it can be overwhelming and intimidating, and that's why, again, Milorganite's so good, because it's not going to hurt your plants if you're underwatering. Not that we recommend that, but it's a little more forgiving than many other fertilizers. So watering will just help get things moving faster.
Yeah. All right. Some definitely wonderful tips on how to apply it. And thank you very much for those. Melinda, as far as, some of the other tips for, fall right now, what else do you have in terms of the plant care and lawn care for fall this time of year?
For those of us with container plants or the plants we didn't get planted this year, I just finally put mine away for the winter. For those of us in colder climates, if you've got a plant in a container, you want to leave it out all winter long. Make sure your pot is weatherproof. Soil when it's moist and water turns to ice, it expands, crack. Terracotta pots will absorb moisture and crack. So you want to make sure it's a fiberglass, or I even have good luck with plastic, but something that's weatherproof. Your plants need to be at least one zone hardier than your growing area. So if you're in a zone 5 and you're going to leave your plant out in a container, make sure it's at least a zone 4. Even 3 would be better. The bigger the pot, the more insulation for those roots. Because what's happening is those roots are above ground, small volume of soil. They're not protected from those changes in climate. They're going to dry out. You need to water whenever the soil's thawed and dry, which we don't think about in cold climates. For you guys, that's normal. And if you need to protect them, I just moved some perennials and shrubs that didn't get in the garden into my unheated garage. I usually pack some bags of shredded paper around the roots just for added insulation. I made sure they were watered well before I stored them, and then I'll just check them if we have any warm spells. Occasionally we get 70 or 80 degrees in March, and that's usually when people lose their plants that are being winter stored because they don't think about it. The soil thaws, it's dry.
Yeah.
A gardener once told me, much wiser than me, I always would take my watering can out, and my neighbors thought I was crazy when I lived in the city, and this woman goes, well, I just throw a scoop of snow on. So when she's shoveling, no de-icing salt on that snow.
Hey, Melinda, sorry, we're going to have to take a break right now. Thank you very much for the info. When we get back, we'll continue chatting with Melinda Myers.
You bet, and we're going to dig into more of why Tiger's so happy about spreading fertilizer all over the place. That and a lot more here on Garden America. We are back from the break here on the Garden America, those on Biz Talk Radio and Facebook Live. If you are tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, this is the final segment of hour number 1. News coming up top of the hour. Back for hour 2. Hopefully, your market carries our second hour, and that'll be at 6 minutes after. In the meantime, we continue and gradually wrap up our conversation, Tiger, with Melinda Myers.
Yeah, Melinda, before the break, you were talking about some of the fall tips, getting ready for winter, the pots. Now, it's funny you mentioned pottery, and I don't know if they have this where you are, but where we are, terracotta is just terracotta. And it's actually probably one of the least expensive pots that you can get in our market, even less expensive than plastic pots. But when we were in England, I understand that there are different classes of terracotta because over there, they worry about the freeze. And there's actually high-end terracotta that can withstand colder temperatures. Do you have that up there where you live as well?
No, we don't. I'm going to have to check that out.
Okay.
That's very interesting. So,
yeah, because of exactly what you mentioned about the freezing and then the water in the terracotta, they can sometimes crack it. But I guess, in England, I was looking at the pots and they were very, very expensive. And I'm like, wow, this is expensive stuff here. And they're like, oh, well, it's a specific terracotta. So it was kind of an interesting thing.
Well, when you were looking at the pots, you thought they had the weight on them because it would say like 7 pounds.
Yeah.
Hey, that's true. You find out who your friends are, your loyal friends, when you have to move heavy pots into storage or move them around for the party coming up. Everyone seems to disappear when it's that time for me.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Melinda, we have some questions that came across on our Facebook feed, so we're going to go ahead and let John read a few of those to you.
Well, the first was a comment from Linda, and we had mentioned this a little bit with the bear, but she said she was really happy to find out Milorganite's not toxic to pets because her dog put her snout
into the bag, right?
Put her snout in the bag and started munching. And Melinda said that she's heard a lot of that.
Yeah.
But again, completely non-toxic to animals and humans, right?
Correct. You don't really want to eat it. It's a little bit too much fiber, but yeah.
Right. And then Rick in Star, Idaho, has a personal question for you. He wants to know if you had any surprises in your vegetable garden this year.
I have to. It was a good one. I grew garden huckleberries for the first time, and I started them from seed, and I planted them. And I didn't do my due diligence of research, and I kept tasting them when they looked ready. And then I finally did some checking, and I'm like, oh, a light frost. But I'll tell you, they were very prolific. They were disease-free. I made garden huckleberry pies, and they were delicious. So the friends I served them to like those unusual things to grow and eat. And so I wasn't going to grow them again when I was there. Not tasty without a lot of sugar, but boy, put a pie crust around them and some sugar, and it's delicious.
There's a garden controversy over Luther Burbank creating, I think it was called the sunberry. Are you familiar with that, Melinda?
Oh, you know what? I read about them. I had thought about growing them. I think they might be invasive in some parts of the country. I forget. You know more about them, it sounds like.
Well, the controversy was that some people, I believe, claimed it was nothing more than the garden huckleberry, but Luther Burbank claimed it to be a cross between a blackberry and maybe a huckleberry. I'm not sure. And I did grow them here one year, and they were really prolific, but some type of beetles, cucumber beetles or something, just ate every leaf on the plant. But that seems like something that would do well in your area. Would definitely be worth looking into if you were able to do so well with huckleberries.
I'm going to give it a try. I've had the true huckleberry, which is a relative of the blueberry, which tasted a little bit different. But, for being in Wisconsin, this was a good second. So I'll try to send. I remember checking them out in the catalog. And I may have even had some seed I purchased and didn't get planted. So good point. I'm going to go check that out.
I can't believe you had seed that you purchased and didn't get planted. I had to move from seed drawers to seed bins with all the packets that haven't been planted.
I feel so much better. Thank you.
And I think that's it for the questions. Right. Let me see this last one. Yep.
All caught up.
Excellent. So, Melinda, you're back at which nursery are you at again this morning?
I'm at Ebert's Greenhouse Village. It's in a town called Ixonia, and it's just west of Oconomowoc. You may miss some of those names, John, leaving the Midwest. When I first moved here, I was like, how do you spell that? What's that? Where's that at? But it's a great
How do you spell Sheboygan?
Yeah, Sheboygan, Oconomowoc. I live in Mukwonago, oh, crazy. But a family-owned business, and the staff here is just wonderful. So we're going to talk holiday plants, greenery, keeping it fresh through the holidays, and picking Christmas trees, fresh Christmas trees for the holidays.
And if you got our newsletter, you would have seen John's article about the difference between a Thanksgiving cactus and the Christmas cactus. I know you mentioned that earlier, that you guys are going to be kind of addressing those today at your talk as well.
You bet. And so was your feeling, John, that the Thanksgiving cactus is often what they're selling as the Christmas cactus, or the hybrid between the two?
Yeah, I think that the Christmas cactus is probably 95% Thanksgiving cactus, the zygote cactus.
I think you're right. So, well, good.
The only way you get a Christmas cactus is if you have a grandparent that's passed one down to you over the years, and you just keep this huge plant in your, I think you have to put it in the partially heated porch.
Yeah, right.
So, and, it's one of those heirloom plants.
Exactly.
I get lots of calls, it sounds like you do. I have grandmas, I have great-grandmas, and the responsibility, it can be overwhelming.
The responsibility, I like that. That is so true when you're handed down those heirloom plants, for sure.
Hey, do we have time for one quick question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. John wants to know, getting back to Christmas, if you have any tips for taking care of potted poinsettias. And I think he mainly wants to know how often they get watered.
And that's probably the biggest thing. I was just I grabbed a foil wrapper. When I'm at a party, you guys probably get this too. Look, my poinsettia's not doing well. The first thing I do is lift it up, and there's an inch of water in the bottom, yes. Right? So either bend the foil down so light gets to all of them, either punch holes in that foil or put some pebbles so that the pot sits on the pebbles any excess water is below the pot. Water thoroughly. Put your finger down. It should be starting to dry that top inch. You don't want it to go too dry where, those peat-type soil mixes, potting mixes, they're hydrophobic and they just kind of shrivel up and you have to re-wet it. But overwatering can be probably even more detrimental. So water thoroughly. I always take mine over the sink, water thoroughly, let it drain, put it back. And then if I've waited too long and it wilts, it may forgive you once, but then make a note not to wait that long next time.
Hey, Melinda. So thank you very much for joining us. Great tips. Hope you have a good talk over there and have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
All right, Melinda Myers, we are going to take a break now. Those on the Biz Talk Radio, news coming up top of the hour. We're back in 6 minutes after. Facebook Live, stay right there. More coming up on your weekend with Garden America. Welcome back to the show. Those on Biz Talk Radio, segment 1, hour number 2. We do appreciate it. Thank you for those that have been with us since the beginning. Melinda Myers with great ideas as we talk a lot about Milorganite and ways that Milorganite can be a benefit and very beneficial to your gardening lifestyle, John, as you like to put it now and then.
Real quick, we were talking about the comments, and I do want to address one comment that Rick made about the Milorganite. So in the area he lives in, they run out of it, and he said, I'm going to have to start hoarding it.
Right, exactly,
well,
right?
The nice thing about Milorganite, too, is that if you do choose to hoard it and you do keep it in a dry place, it lasts. Other fertilizers that, are chemical fertilizers.
They have a shorter shelf life, right?
They do have a shorter shelf life, and, once you open the bag, there's a certain time frame that you have to use them in. With the Milorganite, you can have 4 bags sitting in your shed for a year or longer, and it'll still be a good, viable product at the end. So, it does store well, unless you have bears.
Bears or very curious dogs.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the bear thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, John made a good point. Walking outside, check to the left, check to the right. No bears, you're good to go.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was Tiger's point, but still a good point.
Still a good point. Look to the left, look to the right.
Yeah.
Proceed with caution.
Unless you're in England.
And you're looking out for what?
Look to the right, and then you look to the left.
Yeah, because how many times did we almost get run over trying
So
to
many
cross the
times.
street?
And if you're dyslexic, it's even worse.
Oh, my gosh. I don't know how that would work in England. You might be okay, right? If
Yeah,
you're
if
dyslexic.
you just are that way to begin with.
Okay, now here's a question I know that we haven't answered yet, John.
Oh.
Well, Tiger would have to answer this one because he's been more involved with Tomato Mania, and I
Okay.
don't know if you came across any tomato tastings
That are coming up?
or
that-
that have gone. Rick wanted to know if how the tomato tastings turned out, and if you weren't involved with those, you probably heard from Scott Dave some information on flavors of new tomatoes.
Yeah, so, this year, I know they did host one up in Ojai recently. I didn't hear necessarily any new results from that tasting. I'll have to reach out to Scott about it. But, I know that the kind of industry or theme as a whole is moving into that more compact. Did you see the new Baker Creek seed catalog?
No, I didn't.
Well, their focus plant is this little yellow tomato that's the size of about, I don't know, a volleyball.
Really?
And it was full of tomatoes.
Huh.
And so
You don't remember the name, do you?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but the theme of all of these plants are going to that more compact with better production.
Right.
Like
the super dwarfs.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say you were involved with the super dwarfs on
Right.
that same kind of thing. So I think that the flavor is still going to be there, but they're a smaller tomato and is a more compact plant. So that's one of the things that I've definitely seen from Baker Creek and from Tomato Mania is their focus plants are more compact. They're not the big tomatoes.
And I noticed that it came out a few years ago, but there's more emphasis currently on the heirloom marriages.
Yeah.
Which are crosses between two heirloom varieties, like I'm trying to think of like Costa Ludo Genovese and Brandywine, maybe crossing those two tomatoes and coming up with, I think that's the cross they used for a tomato called Genuine. But anyway, those are something to look into.
It sounds like a full-time, process or job for these people sitting around scratching their head thinking, what if we cross this with that?
Well,
And
they
then-
have, like Ball Seed Company has a breeding facility where there's just, I mean.
That's
I
all
don't
they
know
do?
yeah, I don't know how many people they have, but yeah, that's all they do is just work on vegetable crosses. When we were there years ago, they were working on a watermelon that was a bush watermelon rather than, vining. Like a lot of people don't have room to grow watermelon because you have a vine that goes out 20 feet. But if you could have one that would stay in like a little 3-foot area and produce some nice fruit. Anyway, who knows what they're going to come up with.
Yeah.
Sounds like running bamboo versus clumping bamboo. Keep it all in one place.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm gonna running and clumping, and then I'm gonna be like standing bamboo.
Oh, we're just straight up.
Just all it doesn't move.
Doesn't move at all.
They have trotting bamboo, which is some running bamboo species they're not that invasive. They don't spread that fast. Mm-hmm. So you get the best of both worlds. Eileen wants to know what type of planting medium you would recommend for a Thanksgiving or Christmas cactus. They will take a little more moisture than regular cactus and succulents because they are they're forest plants, right? They're epiphytes. They grow in trees, so they like a little more organic material, but they do like fast draining soil also. So what I use is a good potting soil and put in about 30% more perlite. Or I think now people are using pumice also, right, Tiger?
Yep, that's their focus is pumice, not perlite now.
Yeah, and pumice is nice because it actually holds the plant and it has a little
more weight to it than the perlite did.
So anyway, if you take a regular potting soil and that already has some perlite in it or is good draining, like ocean forest or
which
happy
has
frog.
just about everything you need.
Yeah, but for cactus, add a little bit more pumice, I guess, to the mix, and that'll help. Because you want it to be, as long as it's fast draining, you're not going to have any problems. And even though they do like more water than a regular cactus, you still want to...
You want the drainage.
Well, you want the drainage, but you don't want to let them go dry after they've started to dry out. Make sure you water them again.
Sounds difficult.
It's not that difficult. People really used to, I wasn't kidding about passing those down. We had a plant one time that we had gotten from my grandmother, and it was a Christmas cactus that was 50, 60 years old. And my wife made a macrame hanger back in the day.
Hey, let's hear it for the 70s.
And we hung it on our porch at the condo we lived in Mount Clemens, Michigan, and had a huge storm that came up, gigantic winds, just ripped the the plant down, smashed it on the patio, and that was the end of that. After 60 years.
Well, all things don't end the way we'd like them to.
I could have started a new one, but I forget what happened to that.
Tiger, I see you've just grabbed that calendar.
Yeah, I just was reminded. So one of the we talked about gifts in our last show coming up for the holidays.
Yes, we did.
With a whole variety of different things. And one of the things I forgot to mention was this calendar from Jessica Damiano, and she put together a day by day gardening calendar. So when you open up this calendar, each day
tells you what you should be doing
exactly
based on the time of the year, the month.
So, for instance,
I'm at the age where I really need that.
on
Somebody
January,
tell me what to do each day.
On January 12th, you should restock bird feeders and be sure to provide clean water. Okay. On August 11th, for the best taste, ripen tomatoes on the vine. But if birds or insects are nibbling, harvest a bit early and ripen indoors. So, I mean, for anybody like John who needs a great reminder of what you should be doing.
That calendar holds your hand.
Yes.
Is what it does.
And then there's wonderful pictures that go along with each month, too. Like, let's see. My birthday is in April. What is the April picture? Ooh, tulips.
Okay, mine's in November. What's the picture for me?
Yours is next week, right?
Yes, it is. I'm a Thanksgiving baby.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Not so thankful.
Wow. Did that really go over the
Look
air?
at that. You get a street.
See, I like that. Now, see,
You like that?
I love that. I love
like
the,
a
on
fall-
each side of the street.
A fall view of a street.
You're
with
just
leaves
immersed.
falling.
It looks like my driveway. In
I was going to say, this looks like a property that I got sent a picture to that my crews didn't do a good job of cleaning up.
Raking it up. So there you go. Great calendar, right?
Yeah. So let me see if I can find it's jessicadamiano.com. That's Jessica Jessica DAMIANO.com.
And then of course Dana
Damiano
says that we should be putting out our own calendar, which goes along with last week. The coffee mugs, the T-shirts, the
she
polo
says that
shirts.
we'd all buy it, so I'm wondering who's there with Dana listening to the show.
John,
While you're gone.
There are some things
The
that
fish
go on that
and the cats.
I'd rather not know. But yeah, there you go. Great idea. That took a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, day to day.
365 notes for gardening.
That said, we're going to take a break.
What about leap year, though?
We can talk about that when we return because we're running a bit late.
All
As
right.
they used to say, running late but sounding great. We are Garden America, back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. All right, thank you for tuning in as we continue on what's an interesting Saturday morning here in San Diego. It's a bit cool, a bit chilly. We now go to John Bagnasco for today's local San Diego forecast. John?
Tiger said it's going to get hot again, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to get hot.
We just got perfect weather. Then we're going to go back.
This
into
is
the
terrible
80s.
because you get used to the fall, the cool, less watering.
Yeah, forget about us. It's the plants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's just too much.
It's it's like a tug of war. It's back and forth with the weather.
I had a horticultural disappointment this week.
Oh, no.
Oh, I like that. A horticultural disappointment.
Yeah, I told you about the caudiciform that I never remembered the name of. It's from Madagascar, and it has flowers that look like a black-eyed Susan.
Okay. Yeah.
You
I remember
that
yeah,
plant?
I remember that one.
And the common name is the mousetrap tree.
Right.
And I brought in the seed pod, and I harvested the seeds, because you can't grow that plant except from seed. You can't buy it anywhere. So I put the seeds in a pot, and I was shocked. Within about a week, they started to come up. And then I think I put in, I don't know, it was maybe like 10 seeds, and 5 plants came up. And I was really excited because I was going to grow one for you, one for Tiger. And today I went out and looked at it to see how they were doing, and they're Vinca.
What?
It's
Vinca
like-
minor?
No, Vinca major. No, Vinca rosea. They're Vinca seeds.
Where,
Like,
How did that happen?
where did it? Wait a minute.
I know. Where did
Where'd you
you
get the
lose him?
seeds from?
I didn't get the seeds. I put in the correct seeds, but there's Vinca plants nearby, periwinkle plants.
Oh.
And, they must have just blown in there somehow. I don't know.
Oh,
That's the answer, my friend.
okay. So you're saying in this pot, Vinca seeds blew into the pot, and
Yeah.
that's what started growing at the same time that you planted these mousetrap seeds.
It's exactly what I was
So
saying.
Okay.
So-
Maybe not as
so-
succinctly as you, but
so these mousetrap plant seeds,
still haven't come up.
but they still have the potential because you
They
only
do
put
have
them,
the potential.
You only put them in how many weeks
It's like
ago?
unrealized
Are they getting
potential
crowded
at
out,
this
though?
point. I don't know. I think I'm going to give up.
Horticultural disappointment.
I know.
There should be a
So-
segment each week. And now we go to John Bagnasco for this week's horticultural disappointment. John?
Yeah.
It's like going to the weather guy, right?
I don't know if people would tune in for that, though.
Well, no, but you know why they would? Because it makes people feel good. Because everybody listening, watching right now experiences horticultural disappointments.
Right.
And when they know that we experience that, they feel a little better about
People
themselves.
are attracted to losers more so than winners, I think.
Well, you
I think
explained
of-
that about as well as Tiger explained your pontification a few moments ago.
Trying to think if I had any disappointments this week.
I thought of that, and Carla mentions that the answer's blowing in the wind.
Yeah, I just didn't finish it.
Right,
But she finished it for us because her stream of consciousness is like you and me, John.
right. We had a couple of those songs. I saw online somebody had posted, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. Now you'll come at 4 p.m."
That's good. I like
That's
that.
when the time changed.
Yeah, excellent.
And then
excellent.
you and I were talking about the Crimson and Clover.
Last week, right.
Right.
And you said they bloom over and over again?
Well, no, they're annuals.
So, okay.
So you have to plant them over and over.
Plant them over. That's right, yeah.
Right. Crimson clover is what we're talking about. I think Rick had mentioned he was growing that in his garden.
Yeah. And now the garden huckleberry that Melinda and you were chatting about, is that an annual plant? Like she said, she started from seed and got it first year, and
Yeah, it's
do
important.
you have to replant it?
It's important to read up on garden huckleberry because she talked about the true huckleberry, which is related to blueberries.
Blueberry.
But the garden huckleberry, if I'm not mistaken, is in the nightshade family
Sounds like something that would be there, right?
and is
Solana.
poisonous if it's not ripe.
Oh, the actual berry is poisonous
Right.
if it's not truly ripe.
So, right. So I think you need to
John, I think this is ripe. Would you?
Yeah.
taste it.
What do you think? You taste it and let me know what you think.
But no, because she said she ate some, remember? And then she talked about how she tasted some, and then, I got to wait till the frost. And she was talking to us, so she didn't.
Well,
You
I'm
think it
not
was
sure
Melinda.
about that, but I do recall that there's something there with
Okay.
maybe they
mean,
just make you sick to your
I mean,
stomach.
the solanums across the board, they're a scary plant because in that whole family,
Well, there's tomatoes.
you've got tomatoes,
Yeah.
you've got
Peppers.
potatoes, you've got peppers, you've got these huckleberry things, you got nightshade. They're all in this family, but like you just said, if you don't eat this one when it's ripe, you die. If you don't cook this one right, you die. If you just eat this one even when it's ripe or cooked, you die.
Oh, if you eat green potatoes, they're poisonous,
That's
right?
what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
see, like it's a why does one of our
I don't want a
major
garden anymore.
food crops
The
come from
adjective
the
that
most,
goes along with nightshade is deadly, right? It's called
The
deadly,
deadly
nightshade.
nightshade. You're right. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why does one of our major food crops come from this plant that it seems like there's no margin of error?
Hey, let's pick another hobby and create a different show. I'm scared.
Oh, you weren't on that trip. We went to England. We went to Northumberton, to the Duchess of Northumberton's castle. And she had a garden with a fence around it. And on the gate was a skull and crossbones.
All right.
and everything in that garden was poisonous.
Oh, is that famous garden where
yeah.
it's a poisonous? I've
called
yes.
the Poison Garden.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've read about it. I know
Right.
exactly what
I
you're
mean, she was
talking
growing
about.
poison ivy in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she grew everything that could affect people
Right.
badly.
It
in
was
the garden.
fascinating.
Yeah.
In some plants, you would wonder, why is that in here? Because foxglove was one of them.
Yeah.
And foxglove is the genus for foxglove is digitalis.
Mhm.
And, if you take too much digitalis, it stops your heart, right? I mean, it's used as a heart medicine.
Yeah.
We have a fascinating show coming up in January, I think Tiger told me, where we're going to interview an ethnobotanist.
This show right here, Garden America.
That's right.
Okay, January. Keep this in mind.
And how long have you been waiting to interview an ethnobotanist? Brian?
January 15th.
7 years.
7 years.
7 years. It's taken this long, and Tiger is going to make it happen.
Right. And her name is Dr. Cassandra Quave, and she just released a new book within the last month called The Plant Hunter. And I can't recommend that book highly enough. We'll talk about it more in January, obviously, but it would make a great Christmas gift. Or if you just are looking for something to read right now, I think for me, it was like a cross between David Fairchild and Rachel Carson.
We should do a book club where we put out a book that people should read, and then every couple months we'll have that author on the show
To discuss it.
and then we can discuss it.
Well,
That'd
that's a
be
good
neat,
idea.
right?
Yeah.
Why not?
So right now, everybody out there that's listening, your assignment is Dr. Cassandra
The plant
Quave, the
Quave's
Plant Hunter.
Plant Hunter book, and then that way on January 15th, you will be ready for a book discussion.
Now, has there ever been another book under the same title?
Plant
It just
Hunter?
sounds very familiar.
Yeah, there are some books with the Plant Hunter in them. So that's why Quave is spelled Quave.
Okay.
And what's interesting about this book is it's kind of a story of her academic life and, how she grew up and the trials she had to overcome.
And tribulations. Don't forget those.
More trials than tribulations, but there were a few tribulations.
And we're going to take a break on that note as John takes us into the break here on Garden America. Those on Facebook Live, more questions, comments, coming back after these messages for you on Biz Talk Radio. Right back with your friends here on Garden America. Those on Facebook Live, very quick breaks, no commercials, Biz Talk Radio. You get to hear our fantastic advertisers, those who support the show each and every week. John, did you want to wrap up, or are we done with the trials and
what
tribulations?
I wanted to mention was that my wife really likes the book. She's reading it right now, and my wife is a nurse practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And the book combines plants and medicine. Plants that are used for medicines.
Mm-hmm.
So I got through the medicinal part just because it was plant related, right?
Sure.
And
Easy
she's-
reading for you, right?
And Shannon's getting through the plant part because it's medicinal related. But what Dr. Quave is working on is the thrust of her research is to she's working with bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics, like MRSA and things like that. We're developing these superbugs that have been treated with antibiotics in the past, but then they develop a resistance
to them.
So there's no way that some of these things, there's no way that any antibiotic works. Well, she's working with plants to develop a different method of attack so that she can actually make some of these bacteria to be affected again by the same antibiotics we used to use.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's just so
It's like coming
fascinating.
full circle back
Yeah.
to it. Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
But the problem she runs into is that you have chemical companies out there that spend billions of dollars in research to come up with new antibiotics. But very little money had been put into her area, which was developing a different way of attacking the bacteria with, I forget what biofilms is what they're called. So my wife explained it to me, but
And doing it in a more natural way or not? Yes and
No,
no.
it's actually more technical.
It's technical. Okay.
But
All right.
the problem is that when you go to a plant source, you've got hundreds of chemical compounds within the plant. And she's going to traditional ways of treating people. She's interviewing people who are maybe in their 90s, talking about how they treat people in this village, that come up with these different diseases. And even they might use a certain plant, but within that plant, there's hundreds of compounds, and which one is actually doing,
Right.
Where's the benefit really coming from? So anyway, the book will explain it much better than I'm doing right now. And it's an interesting book because of her life and how she was affected growing up and the trials she goes
that's
through.
something to look
and
forward
like
to.
you mentioned, a few tribulations.
Yeah.
I just posted the link to the book for anybody that's listening to go to our Facebook Live broadcast, and
Right.
the link is in the chat there as well.
Sure. Those on Biz Talk Radio, go to our, I guess this page right here, our Facebook page, and which is, of course, Garden America Radio on Facebook, and the link is up there.
Hey, there was an interesting blog that I read this week, and it was the 5 reasons people regret planting a fruit tree. And I was like, that's an interesting title, like regret.
And 5.
5.
Five.
That they regret. And
Let me guess. Do you know the 5?
I do, because I read the...
I would say that guessing that the fruit didn't taste the way they wanted it to, failure of fruit production,
Okay, good. There's one. You're
dropping
right.
too many leaves, dropping, making a mess.
Okay, no.
Okay.
I would say got too big for what they thought it was going to.
That's another one.
Yeah. Okay. So we're
Yep.
you're 1 for 1.
There's
I'm 1
2.
for 2.
Okay. You guys
I'm
got
going
3
to quit
more.
it. I'm betting 1,000.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh gosh. Fruit drop.
No.
I'm going to quit now, John.
All right.
Well, didn't he just say
He
that?
just
And
said
you
it.
No,
told him
I talked about. Well, yeah, maybe because I was talking about leaves dropping.
mess.
Mess.
You said mess.
Yeah, I said mess. I tried to disguise the question. Didn't
So,
work.
so the number 1 reason was they didn't know how to prune them. So
Oh.
they were scared of improper pruning.
That's the number one fear after public speaking is the fear of pruning
improper
Fear
fruit
of
trees.
pruning.
Yeah.
Exactly. Death is like 4 or 5, I think, John.
And then another so it went improper pruning, it went the overproduction, underproduction. It went
That's kind of where I was going. The overproduction.
right. Yeah,
Right.
fruit drop
Yeah, okay.
overproduction, underproduction, not tasting
The way they
the
thought.
way
way
they
you
thought
thought
it
it
would
would be.
taste, and all this time invested into it, and just the pest management. So
Yeah, that would be one,
aphids,
sure.
mealybugs, scale, that kind of a
citrus
thing.
leaf miner.
Yeah, all that
That's
kind of
my
stuff.
problem.
And then the size you mentioned,
Yeah.
getting too big,
I think I mentioned that.
or you mentioned that one.
Right, but I'm going to take credit. But that's all part of gardening.
Well, and that's what I was kind
I
of
could say
getting
the
at.
same
I'm
thing
like,
about roses or anything else.
all of those things are why we do garden, is
Yeah.
because those are all the things that we're constantly battling, no matter what you're growing.
I mean, you have an idea of what you want and what you think you'll get, but there's still the anticipation of what's going to really happen when it comes to fruition.
and
It's like saying I'm not planting wine grapes because I planted them and I had to fertilize them, I had to harvest them, I had to pick the grapes, I had to, squish them and
go one
get
step
all
further.
the juice out. And
I'm not going to have a child because I have to feed the child. I've got to change the diapers on the child. I got to pay for the education for the child. I got to make sure the child's safe.
But see, you're making some really good points there.
But yeah, point well taken. Okay, welcome to the world of gardening.
it is.
Come on.
It really is. All of that.
Then
is-
don't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Grow a.
It's the same thing for having a pet, right? If you feel that
Perfect.
way, you shouldn't have one.
And a lot of people shouldn't have pets.
Right. Or kids.
But then on the flip side, like what Rick asked Melinda this morning in her interview was, what were you kind of surprised by? What made you happy this year in your garden? And
Right.
something that she had never done before, something that was new to her, and she tried. And I wouldn't say she was 100% successful. It doesn't sound like she was like ecstatic. It was just a pleasant surprise that what she grew with these garden huckleberries were fun and different than what she was normally accustomed to.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of gardening too, is that every year, every month, you get this opportunity to do something new and different.
Well,
So,
she
John-
said she had a group of friends that liked eating unusual things.
Yeah.
And there's a book out God, it's got to be about 40 years old now, called Growing Unusual Fruit.
Oh, there you go.
So, John, let me ask you, we talked about poisonous plants before, and I do have one in my patio that's not poisonous, but John said to be very careful in working around it. The pencil plant, right?
Oh, the euphorbia.
Oh, yeah.
You can go blind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Explain the dangers and the trepidation of the pencil plant. Look at the smile on his face.
I'm trying to get these thoughts out of my head right now that I can only say during the break.
I know.
But yeah, it has a toxic latex sap that comes out of it.
Mm.
And it depends how allergic you are. Some people are allergic.
Now, that's if it's broken?
If you touch the sap.
Okay.
Some people are allergic. I would say probably most people aren't, but a significant percentage of people are. But if you get it in your eyes, it's not good.
Do you know that I think about that every time I come close
you think it's
to
just
it?
going to shoot it at you?
It's that one little comment that John made several years ago. It sticks with me, and I always wear glasses. First of all, I wear glasses out there anyway because there's no room, and I turn around, I'm getting poked by something. So I'm always wearing glasses. But
safety goggles.
Whatever, yeah. So yeah, if you were to bend it or
if
open
you
it
break
up,
it,
break it
it's
open.
a euphorbia, and a lot of euphorbias, you can tell that they're a euphorbia because of the milky sap.
But you don't get a euphoric feeling. That's the difference.
Oh, that's good. We should do some research on that. Never know.
Stopped him in his tracks.
Carolyn says, happy birthday to you, Brian, on the 25th. I think your birthday was on the 28th.
He's I'm the 28th. He said
Right.
he chose ice cream cake. Well, besides a new truck, my choice, the new truck.
What are you mumbling over there?
I know, right? Hey, you're on the radio. Quit mumbling.
Yeah.
We're taught to enunciate, not mumble.
Oh.
Will be the 26th. Okay, he chose ice cream cake. Besides
That's her
the new
youngest
truck.
son.
Yeah. What
He's
would my
54.
choice be? Well, my choice would be the truck. Yeah, ice cream
A
cake
real
is
truck
good.
or a toy truck?
Yeah, big old truck.
You would like
F-150.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Over ice cream
Raised. Over ice cream, yeah.
But what kind of cake
Yeah.
do you like for your birthday? Or do you not care?
I really don't care. Chocolate's good.
Really?
See,
You
my
don't have a
oldest
favorite
son-
cake?
I don't,
Really?
Well, okay.
What kind of person are you?
Vanilla. Maybe
Really?
a vanilla. Hold on here. I'm getting chastised by you. What's your favorite?
Carrot cake.
Oh, my gosh. Who came up with the idea
Ah.
of putting fruit or vegetables in a cake?
It's like zucchini bread.
Oh, that's delicious too.
I do like carrot cake.
With that
Yeah.
cream cheese frosting? Are you kidding?
Yeah, you're right. All right,
Yeah,
just, okay.
that can be good.
That-
My
that's
son's favorite
good. All right, we'll go with the carrot cake then.
cake, my oldest son's favorite cake, is a chocolate chip chiffon cake with buttercream frosting.
Ooh,
I like
buttercream.
velvet cake too. What is that?
The red velvet?
Red velvet's good. We're going to take a break. Back after this. One more segment here on Garden America. We have made it. Welcome back to the show. If you're listening on Biz Talk Radio, thank you for tuning in and listening through the breaks. Those on Facebook Live, a lot of people have been with us since the beginning of the show, and we've got to give them kudos.
Well, we've got a question for Tiger.
To sit through that, I'll tell you what. Question for Tiger.
Yeah, Tiger. Sandra wants to know about growing asparagus. How do you grow asparagus?
How?
Yeah.
Right now's the time of year to plant it. Right.
Yeah.
So
I think
this
she wants to know how to take care of it. So maybe we go through quick for how to plant it and then what you do every year.
So definitely this is the time of year to plant it. So, whether you're getting seeds or whether you're getting starts from the nursery, you can plant it now. You do want to plant it in a well-draining kind of loose soil because kind of again with those kind of root crop things, when you go to harvest it, you want it to be something that is easily done because you're going to be digging it out.
And the depth of the trench you put it in is important.
Yeah, because again, like we're talking like a root crop.
Right.
Yeah.
That is going
It's going to come back year after year.
It's a perennial, kind of like an artichoke kind of a thing where you
Right.
can kind of have this thing ongoing. So, I mean, what do you recommend, John? 8 inches?
No, I think I would go deeper. I would probably go like a foot
A foot?
to a foot and
Now
a half.
you're talking 12 inches, John. Right? With a foot.
12 to 18.
12 to 18.
Yeah.
So
And what I would do is, because, again, remember, it's going to be there indefinitely, right?
Right.
It's not something you're going to change every year. So especially depending where you are in California, if you're in a poor soil area, you want to get as much organic material as possible. So dig the trench. And then what I would do is not fill it all the way up. What I would do would be to put back a mix of soil and organic material and wait until the asparagus comes up in the spring, and then slowly fill up the hole until
Okay.
it gets to the
So
top.
you're saying like kind of slowly put it in as the plant grows.
Right.
So don't fill it up all in day one. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Because that way you'll have a good, rich soil with deep-rooted asparagus. It's going to give you good plants year after year. Also, you don't want to harvest the asparagus the first year.
Yeah, you want to
good
let it
rich
go.
soil, deep-rooted asparagus.
And,
That's right.
And then also in terms of fertilizer and kind of watering, they just need there's nothing real special, that they need in terms of fertilizer.
No, but if you are using an organic mix as you're filling it up, like we were saying earlier, mix some Milorganite in there.
There's really nothing they need in terms of that. They do like a little bit wetter soil, and then they like to be kept cool. Again, since they are this kind of fall winter planting crop. So you wouldn't want to put it in an area of your yard that stays real warm, because in the spring when it is time,
Right.
you'd be almost like wanting to shade the plant if you're in a hot region. So a cool part of your garden would be important. So under some, trees, under some heavy bushes that are going to shade the area. And then, like you say, it wouldn't be the best plant in a raised bed, because
Right.
a raised bed, you want something you can take out year after year and change up.
Right.
Yeah.
This is something that you would put in your garden in a spot that you're going to leave it, let it grow year after year in a cool spot, almost like a clump of bamboo or something, like that you would just kind of put it there and just let it do its thing year after year.
So do you still have the raised beds that your son had, John?
Still do.
Yeah.
So how deep do those go? Just to get an idea.
They were
Well,
they
they're
were lifted
raised
up,
off the ground, actually.
but they're not all full of soil, right? Weren't they?
I mean, how much soil
Well,
could you
this-
put in to that one?
I think they were about 2 feet.
Oh yeah, you
Okay.
did raise it all the way. I thought for some reason it was up off the ground.
No, you could
also.
crawl under them, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
Under
good.
the
So you
raised
can look at the roots from underneath. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
put a window down there.
Right?
While we're on the topic of
Yeah.
asparagus, if you haven't planted your asparagus yet,
Too late?
No, it's a good thing to make
Oh.
sure you get male asparagus,
Because?
because female asparagus does not produce edible shoots. It just produces ferny growth.
Flowers.
Now, we're going to get a lot of
And
cards
then
and letters
s-
about this one.
And then
Yep.
seeds.
You've offended a lot of people.
But there are male clones out there that you can buy that will give you more edible asparagus.
And-
And you remember when this whole thing growing asparagus started in the 70s, right? Because that was the dawning of the age of
Of
asparagus.
asparagus. Yeah, 1970.
God, you guys.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point on the foliage, because the foliage of the asparagus plant actually is kind of a nice little ferny growth. So like if you're
Yeah, it's
planting
kind
it
of pretty.
in an environment like I'm talking about, like a shaded area, it's almost like you're planting a little fern in there.
Right.
And it adds to the landscape. And then plus you get some edible plants in the spring from it. Now, I'm trying to think, slugs and snails and worms go after it a bit, no? Or
I don't think
no?
so.
Okay.
I don't
So I
know.
thought in the spring,
Not as much as some other plants, but maybe
in the spring,
when the spears are coming up,
yes, I think you do have to worry about that time of year
put some sluggo around.
around the plant. Yeah, that would be a good suggestion, especially because of the environment we're telling you to plant it in.
I remember hunting for wild asparagus with my dad when I was a
Really?
little boy in Michigan.
Use a shotgun?
You go into the woods and we'd look for asparagus. As a matter of fact,
Like real
wild
asparagus?
asparagus.
Because they have wild asparagus here, but it's not.
no, it was real.
Oh.
Do you remember Yul Gibbons' book?
Yes.
It was called Stalking the Wild Asparagus.
Yeah, he used to do commercials for,
Yeah.
was it
You
Post Grape Nuts
Do you
Flakes?
remember?
Yeah.
Do you really remember stalking the wild asparagus?
Yeah, I do,
Brian?
because he was
Really?
on Johnny Carson two or three
Right.
times. And,
Really?
he would talk about his book. You know, he'd pick up something off the ground. See this leaf here? I'm going to eat it.
This is a pine nut or a pine
Yeah,
cone.
pine. Yes, exactly. That's right.
He, what was I trying to think about him? Post Grape Nuts was who he did the commercials for.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Worst cereal ever invented.
All right, we got a minute to go. Less than a minute. Any last words, gents, before Thanksgiving? Of course,
eat well.
We want to wish everybody, our listeners and our viewers, a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for
much.
supporting
Right.
Garden America.
And
If you want to buy advertising on our show, you can get a hold of John Bagnasco.
Or Tiger.
How about that? Or
either-
Tiger Palafox.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
you
give me
want
a
to
call.
advertise? Give us a call. Email.
Did you see the backdrop for the newsletter this week that said, "We're thankful for you, our listeners"?
Yes, you did. I love that program, John. John's got a great program. Hey, thank you so much. Hopefully with friends and family as you get into Thanksgiving, and we'll be back again next Saturday right after Thanksgiving, 2 days after Thanksgiving. We'll talk about Thanksgiving, and hopefully it'll be a good one for all of us. We are truly blessed, and we appreciate you as listeners and as viewers. For the entire crew, I'm Brian Main. That's Tiger Palafox waving. I stumble when I say your name for some reason. John Bagnasco, the Hall of Famer. We'll see you next week here on Garden America. Take care.